Hey there, roguelike fans. Welcome to the grand unveiling of the latest version of Caverns of Xaskazien 2. For those of you who have been following the game, the last output version was version 1.03.69, I believe. We're up to 1.12.31 at this point, so quite a substantial leap since the last game version came out. I try to get an update out every 3 months. This one took 8 months, which should tell you just how much work went into it. We've got the usual things. We've got some, very serious new content to the game, a lot of new content, some new game concepts at work, the usual quality of life improvements, and a metric crap ton of bug fixes, as is always the case. But the biggest thing by far, the biggest change you're going to see, not here on the title screen, but everywhere else in the game, I redid the graphics from scratch. Something in the area of 8,000 individual graphics, one at a time. Working for 4 or 5 hours a day for five of those 8 months, concentrating primarily on that. So that's what's taken so long, and we're going to show off those new graphics in 1 second. As for this game, this actual playthrough, it's going to be a standard Let's Play. This is not going to be a hardcore tutorial. That said, with this new rollout of the game, I am trying to get new players to play, and I'm hoping that, providing a video that at least explains what's going on in greater depth than if I just gloss over things, more people will be enticed to play. So if you're new to the game, this is the video for you. I will be explaining things as we go, not laboriously, but in enough depth that you can at least keep abreast. If you're old hat to the game, this first video or two might be a little slower than you're looking for, but, stick around and see the new graphics and have some fun with our character as we go. So here we are on the title screen. We're going to click, I got to get in the window. As always, I am looking at the OBS Studios recording window and not the game window. On that note, I'm running the game currently in a small window so I can record it, which means the visual you're getting is very slightly blurrier than the actual game, but what can you do? If I run it full screen, it runs into problems with OBS for recording purposes. Alright, let's go ahead and click Enter Caverns. We could load a game, just so you can see here, I do have a save game in progress, that's why it's not grayed out, this word. But let's ignore that and create a brand new character by clicking Enter Caverns. So here we are on the character creation screen. You can see at least one of the new, actually 2 of the new graphics. You can 3 of the new graphics. You can see it work right here on the screen. This background paper is new. This particular character icon for the brownie acrobat is new. The dice are new. Just some new, all around new stuff, which we'll see as we continue to progress through the game. Now, as the first step of any roguelike, the important thing is to create a brand new character, and we do that by manipulating our race, our class, our sex, and our religion. These are our 4 starting options as to what we can change. Before we even get to that, I want to showcase one of the aspects of the game that I am most proud of and that I hope will entice some new players, because the game is extremely user-friendly, extremely noob-friendly, and we can see that at work from this screen onward to every screen in the game. And that is that if you point your cursor at anything, doesn't matter what, you will get information about it. If you want to know why you're here to create a character, point at character creation. It'll tell you here's the purpose of the screen. You want to know what the concept of unique abilities is? This is the concept. The individual unique abilities attributed to this particular character, point at it. The attributes, the skills, deficiencies your character gets, the little graphic. What does the back button do? Doesn't matter. Point your cursor at it. You'll get an explanation. Now, we could change our race and class by randomizing it if we wanted to. Just click these buttons. Boom, we could be a half-orc militiaman, a male half-orc militiaman who worships a Loomis. We could do that. We could also cycle through any of the different options. There are 13 races in the game. There are 36 classes, although a few of them have yet to be added back in. They were all removed a few years ago when I introduced a brand new perk system to the game, and they've been one or 2 at a time per update reintroduced to the game. So like 34 or 33 of the 36 classes are in the game now. A few are still missing. So it could be a lizard man, paladin, etc. But I do have a very specific racing class I want to play, and I'll explain why in a second. Before I even do, just coincidentally this came up, so I'll point it out while we're here. When we switched to a lizard man paladin, you saw not recommended pop up, and if we were to look down here, we'd see why this is not recommended. In this particular case, the first perk paladins gain is the Moral Code perk, which increases faith gains each time the character commits a good or evil act. Faith gains for committing such acts are only granted if you worship a good or evil god, and for this reason it is recommended paladins choose a good or evil god for their religion. Alumis is a neutral goddess, so just keep your eye open for that. Most race classes and sex and religion combos work just fine. This, not recommended. Sometimes it'll pop up and it's a very, very serious issue. Like this one would be pretty serious. You really would not want to play a paladin who didn't commit to good or evil. But sometimes they're very minor things, but it still just warns you. So keep your eye open for that, and you can find out why something's not recommended and decide for yourself if you care. Now, for now, we are going to play a lizard man rogue who worships Alumis, actually, coincidentally. We'll get into why in a second. Let's go ahead and randomize the sex. I guess we're going to be a male, a lizard man rogue who worships Alumis. Now, why did I choose this particular combo? A, it's just a hankering. I don't think we've ever played a rogue in this game on this channel, and I'm trying to play something different every time we play so that you're not getting anything similar to what we've seen before on this channel for this game. I'm not sure if we've ever played a lizard man either. I don't think so, but if we have, I apologize. But there are specific reasons why this particular combo, I think, might be smart. I don't know. Anything can work, but let's see how this works. The reason that this combo might work, let's look at the rogue first. When we chose it, you can see everything changes here. Your unique abilities change, for instance. And the rogue's unique ability is they get plus 30% experience from temples. Now, this is a concept I borrowed from Sword of Fargol, one of the only roguelikes I had seen when I started working on Caverns back in 1995. And that concept is when you gather gold and gems in the dungeon, the main purpose for them, you can spend them to buy new things, you can spend them to train yourself in various ways, but the primary purpose of treasure is to donate it to the gods at a temple. And every level has a temple. You drop off your gold and your gems, and you get experience points, where it basically directly converts the value of gold and gems into experience. It's also a concept kind of familiar to those who would have played the original versions of Dungeons & Dragons, where your experience was directly tied to how much treasure you picked up. But in the case of a rogue, however much we should get by dropping off our stuff at the temple, we'll actually get 30% more than that. So it's a useful way to generate a lot of experience for our character, and therefore we really want to concentrate on getting as much treasure as we can to the temple. Now, Alumis is a good choice for that for a few reasons. Let's look at Alumis down here, and let's read her little blurb. Alumis is the goddess of luck. So first of all, thematically, a rogue who worships a goddess of luck seems pretty cool, but her miracles surround treasure generation, setting traps, and increasing your survival odds, usually in a quirky, unpredictable way. She favors having monsters trigger traps, killing giant types, and gambling. She dislikes the killing of insectoids, using good or evil prayers, and detests prayers to Zzikothk, who's just another god that she particularly hates. So, one of the key aspects of why we want to worship Alumis is that some of her miracles surround treasure generation, and that ties back to our getting extra experience from temples. The other reason, of course, is that she loves it when we gamble, at least when we win when we gamble. Now, we may not win at the start of the game, but we can increase a gambling skill and get better and better at gambling, and eventually, if we start winning there, she's really going to love us and shower us with a lot of faith, and in the process, we'll be making a lot of money, which we can then run over to the temple and get a lot of experience for. So it seems like a good synchronicity to me. The reason why I want to play a lizard man in this case, if we look at, in addition to their unique abilities, every character has abilities, and they have deficiencies as well. And one of the primary deficiencies of the rogue, we can see here, can't gain advanced armor use. For our particular character playing a rogue, throughout the game we can wear light armor, but we'll never be able to wear medium armor, we'll never be able to wear heavier armor, which means as the game progresses, we're going to be in some danger because we're not going to be heavily armored enough to be taking on some of the very serious foes. There are ways you can compensate for that. Increasing your dodge skill, for instance, can help you avoid attacks. There's all kinds of spells and magic items that can help there. But you can also just look at the fact that we're a lizard man, and the lizard man's unique ability, we gain plus 30 defense, and that's like wearing like a level 6 breastplate all the time, even when we're not wearing a breastplate. So hopefully, at least in the early game and through the mid-game, that's really going to help compensate for the fact that our armor is a little lighter than we want it to be. That plus 30 defense, by the way, is because of the scales across our body. They basically deflect blows automatically. Other things to note, our abilities. We can learn rogue skills and general skills really easily. We're not very good at learning mage skills. We are terrible at learning warrior skills. So we're really going to be concentrating on getting these skills up versus these types of skills. We'll get more into that as we go through the game. Other things, because we're Lizardman, a deficiency, we can never gain expert mage skills. We can become a mediocre spellcaster and mage, but we'll never be a truly frickin' archmage or anything because Lizardmen just don't have the brain capacity to ever really get there. We also have hatred from aberrations at the start of the game. We'll get into that more as we go through it, but aberrations are like mutants and funguses. Fungi, I guess that would be. They're going to get bonuses to hit us at the start of the game, just because they hate us, because we grew up in a swamp with them, and there's sort of a rivalry between lizardmen and aberrations. These are the skills we're going to start the game with. Advanced swimming, we're a pretty good swimmer. Basic dragon slaying, we get bonuses to hit versus worms. That's like serpents and dragons and lizards and that kind of thing. We have advanced pickpocketing, so if we meet any NPCs, we can try and pilfer their goods. And let's lastly look at our attributes to start. Second lastly, rather. You can see our stats right here: strength, dexterity, intelligence, and health. These are color-coded. As we shift through the different classes, you can see these numbers change, as does the color. Black numbers are at a perfectly average level for a starting character. Average PS is pretty simple. It's 30, 30, 30, and 30 for a starting character. So we're a little weaker because it's red. We can see we're a little weaker than most starting characters. We're also dumber than most starting characters, but we are more dexterous than most, and we have greater health as well. There we go. The last thing we're going to look at is our starting gear. Your starting gear, this includes what equipment your character starts with, as well as what spells your character starts already knowing. This is based 100% on your class, with one exception. If you happen to be playing a cleric, it's going to be based on a combination of your class and your religion, because, clerics devote themselves exclusively to a god, and they're like really... that's their entire life's goal, is to serve that god. So obviously the trappings they have, if you're worshipping a particularly nasty goddess who loves pain versus a benevolent goddess who loves healing, it's going to be very different for those two characters. In this case, we start with a dart. That is a light missile weapon. It does 1 to 3 damage, and it has a 33% distance strike ability. We'll talk about that once we get into combat. We start with a belt pouch, which raises the amount of gold we can carry by 20, so we can carry an extra 20 gold pieces, which for a rogue who gets those bonuses from the temples, pretty good thing. A large and small skeleton key. These will help us pick locks on anything in the game. Nullify traps spell. When we cast it, there's a 75% chance that any traps adjacent to us, booby traps or pit traps, get disarmed. Open lock spell. When we cast it, there's a 50% chance that any locks surrounding us get unlocked. And a cure poison spell, which will remove some poison from our system. Possibly all the poison we have, or possibly only partially, depending on how well this spell works. Let's go ahead and click OK. The last step of character creation, of course, is to choose a name for your character. We could type it in, Joe Rogue Guy, but I'm not going to do that. Let's use the random ability here. Let's click this on. It'll generate some random names. Sometimes the random name is awesome that it generates. Sometimes it kind of sucks. I don't know. It depends on what it comes up with. Whatever it comes up with, let's bear in mind we are a lizard man. The name may be slightly unpronounceable to human tongues. We'll find out. And if you don't like it, you can just keep clicking the dice button to generate a new name anyway. Nox Quadra Runner. Nah. Zzikothk. That's a pretty cool name for a lizard man. Zzikothk. Let's go with that. Here we are loading the game. You can see there's a did you know tip at the bottom. There's a couple of hundred of them in the game. They'll show up as you load. So if you're new to the game, it can be a great place to keep your eye open for things you don't know and you can learn. All right, here we are in the dungeon proper. Now again, I warned you at the start that this might be a slower of the videos in this series. This will be the slowest one because obviously we're teaching the basics of the game, and there's a lot of new crap to look at on the screen right off the bat. So we're going to take about 5 to 10 minutes right now just to go through what we're looking at. Then we'll start moving around and kicking some butt, hopefully. So let's start with this window right over here. We can see all the same stuff we talked about, right? There's our race, there's our class. Again, you point at it. Anything you want to know about it, you can learn about it. Here's your various stats. Here's our spell points. Every time we cast a spell, it's going to cost us spell points. When we run out of spell points, we can't cast spells anymore. Here's our faith points. We get these by making Illumis happy. We lose them by pissing Illumis off, or by petitioning her for help through the course of miracles, which we'll get into a little later in the game. Here's how much gold we have. Nothing. Here's how much we can carry. 40. Normally, you can only carry as much gold as your strength. So normally, a character of strength 20 could only carry 20 gold pieces. But if you recall, we do have that belt pouch, which lets us carry an extra 20 gold. Therefore, we can carry 40. As we get gold, this bar will fill up to show us, hey, you're running out of space to carry gold. Gems work exactly the same in the game as gold does, except there's no limit to how much you can carry. We can carry 1 billion gems all at once, and it wouldn't matter, but only 40 gold. Our experience, here's how much we need to level up. We need 300 experience points to get to the next level. This bar will fill as we go. We're character level 1. We're on dungeon level 1. We have no attribute points. So again, the next thing to point out is just that this doesn't apply. This point and learn aspect does not only apply over here. Obviously, what are these buttons? Want to know what any of the buttons are? Point at it. We can choose any of these buttons by left-clicking them. This is our inventory button. Our low power spells button, where we can see the various spells that we know. We remember those from the character creation aspect. Point at the spell itself. It tells you more details about what it does. It gives you a nice little pretty picture. You can also cycle through these buttons by pressing the period or comma buttons. Or each of them has a little hot key. You can see this is number 2, this is number 3, this is number 4, this is number 5. So if we press number 6, it should jump down to the general skills button. There you go. So again, we'll get into what these various tabs mean as we need them. Let's not worry about them right now. Instead, let's concentrate on looking around at the map, where again, anything we point at, we can learn. Look, we don't know what's out here. The black stuff is all unknown territory. On dungeon level 1, our starting range of vision, the levels get darker. The deeper you go in the dungeon, the darker the dungeon was going to get. But on the starting level, we can see up to 5 squares away, which is why we can see all the way out to here, out to here. You'll see we can see more than 5 squares in some cases. That's because there's light sources. The standing torch, not to mention these glowing mushrooms, luminescent mushrooms, are casting light. The temple itself, we talked about that earlier, is throwing light. This cooking fire is throwing light. So, hey, a shrine to Olympus, a shrine to our very goddess over here, which is glowing. Giving us a bit of light so we can see certain things in the darkness that we otherwise couldn't see. And if there were monsters standing in here, we'd be able to see them too. Right now, we can't see any monsters. This is not a monster. This is a cleric. This is a friendly guy walking around the dungeon who's willing to heal us for money. Heal us, cure us of poison, cure us of diseases. But remember, we have that pocket-picking skill, so we could even go try and steal from him just because, hey, we're a rogue, we're a jerk. What else do we see out here? These are walls. This is a sepulcher. In this case, we could go over here and pay our respects to whoever the dead person is who's buried here. Doing that, as you can see, will reward us with 1 to 100 faith, though this amount will be mitigated by our relationship with our god. So let's take a moment to talk about that. There are a lot more gods than we've seen so far. I think we saw... Actually, Loomis is the only one we even saw in the random opening there of the character. There are 12 separate gods and goddesses in the major pantheon. These are the general gods that everybody worships in Melanthus, the world where this takes place. But there are also something like 30 or 40 minor gods that don't have as much sway in the divine influence of things. That you're not allowed to worship as a player character, but they do come into effect during the game, to a much lesser degree than the major ones do. But we worship specifically Illumis. We can see that right here. It's very important for us to keep her happy. And let's see how happy she is right now. This is the stats button. You can see press the slash key will bring you down here, but let's just click it on. And we can see right here the major deity attitudes. Illumis has 60% attitude towards us. Obviously, it's out of 100. She's still basically indifferent to us, but she likes us more than any of the other gods do because we worship her. All the rest of the gods in the game start at 50%, and these numbers will go up and down throughout the game as you do things. Every single thing you do, you can see the rest of the gods here while I'm telling you all this, I'll explain this. A bunch of other gods here. Every single thing you do in the game is going to please some god and piss off some other god. So you can't really keep track of it all. There's no reason to. You don't really care if you're pissing off a lot of the gods. But you do want to make sure you keep your own god or goddess happy. In this case, if you remember with Illumis, she loves it when we kill giant types. Those are things like ogres and giants and I don't know, various giant humanoid things. So she loves it when we kill them. I don't know why, she just hates them. She loves it when we gamble, which is using a Wheel of Fortune, which, P.S., here's a Wheel of Fortune right here. We'll come back to that in a second. She'll get off on it if we go try and gamble some gold there, assuming we win. If we lose, she doesn't care. Or if we set booby traps of our own and have monsters trigger them, she loves it when that happens. Whether it kills them or not, or hurts them or not, she doesn't care. As long as we set a trap and have them step on it, she thinks that's hilarious. She hates it when we kill insectoids, so we got to make sure we're trying not to, where possible, kill insect-type monsters. Giant spiders, cave crickets, this kind of thing. She gets really mad when we do that. We may have to kill a few. Sometimes it's life or death, right? And it's better to piss off your god than to bleed to death. But, we'll try not to where possible. She also hates it when we use non-neutral prayers or shrines. So if you pray to any evil god or any good god, she'll get mad. She doesn't mind if you pray to neutral gods, unless that neutral god happens to be Xaskazien, in which case you can see there, she gets really, really mad. So anytime we do one of the things she likes, we're going to get faith points. Anytime we do one of the things she hates, we're going to lose faith points. Additionally, anytime we do something she likes, her attitude towards us, this 60%, is going to climb by 1%. Anytime we do something she dislikes, doesn't matter how much she dislikes it, it's going to drop by 1%. So we want to keep that trending upwards. Why? Well, let's look again here. If we pray here, we will get 1 to 100 faith points, but that will be modified by our relationship with our god. So we'll only get 60% of 1 to 100 faith points. If we were at a 100% relationship with her, we'd get the whole kit and caboodle, all 1 to 100 faith points. If we got her down to a 10% attitude where she really frickin' hated us, we'd only get 10% of that value. So you want to keep your attitude with her as best as possible. What do you use faith points for? Well, we can cast miracles. We'll get into that more later. But there's a bunch of miracles unique to Illumis that we can use whenever we want, as long as we have enough faith points to cast them. Since we have no faith points now, let's not worry about that right now. What else do we see out here, guys? There's that Wheel of Fortune. Our gambling skill is absolutely null right now. We don't know how to gamble. So if we took any gold, we run here, we gamble it. You don't have the option to choose how much you gamble. It's a built-in trait of the game to make sure you can't abuse the system. There's also a maximum allowable bet, which is equal to 30 times the dungeon level you're on. So if we had 31 gold pieces, we couldn't gamble. But if we had 30 or less, we'd be allowed to. If we win, it'll double our money. If we lose all of our money. It's always a double or nothing thing on a Wheel of Fortune. And because we're untrained at gambling, it's a straight coin toss, a 50-50 chance we would win. Might be worthwhile because, in addition to winning money, we'll please her if we do it. But we want to get our gambling skill up as soon as possible to increase our odds beyond 50-50. Unfortunately, we can't do it right away. For one thing, we have no skill points. For another, there are going to be more immediate survival necessities for the first little while of the game. But as soon as we have some breathing space to say, hey, we're relatively safe, let's try and get our gambling skill up. Here's some gold right over here. Run over and pick it up. Anytime you find gold, it'll be between 1 and 10 times the dungeon level worth of gold. So we get 1 to 10 gold pieces if we went and picked that up. There is a skill called Scavenging Skill that we could increase to get extra gold when we find it, but we don't have that right now. What else do we see out here? More gold. Here's a cooking fire. If we had any meat, we could go over to the cooking fire and try and cook it, and then we could eat the meat, and we gain bonuses based on how good our cooking skill is. Right now, we suck at cooking. We would char the hell out of anything we try to cook, but it'd be better than nothing. We could still eat it. While we're on that note, there is no hunger clock in this game, unlike some roguelikes. You will never starve to death. There's tons of food in the game. Eating it will always give you bonuses. Not eating it won't hurt you at all. But there is a built-in mechanic in the game that once you've stayed on a given dungeon map for too long, Xaskazien takes notice, and bad things start happening. We'll get warned about that. We'll talk about it more when and if it happens. For now, just be aware. It's not a hard time limit you can spend on each map, but there is a sense of urgency to not linger too long. Usually you have between 900 and 1200 turns on a map before it even starts warning you that, hey, maybe you should think about getting the hell out of here, buddy. A few last things to look at. Here's the temple. Run our treasure there. We'll convert it to 1.13 for us. Remember, 30% extra because we're a rogue. 1.13 times the amount of treasure we're carrying. That would be all of our gold and all of our gems. And we would instantly deposit all of them in the temple, and they'd be gone forever. Shrine to Illumis. We'll talk about that in a minute. Last two things I want to point out. Well, a few last things. This is a small clay idol. It has gemstone eyes. We could go and try and steal those gems, but there's a chance it's booby-trapped, and we'd trigger that trap You can see when we point at it, 40% chance of that. There's also a 10% chance that the small clay idol is actually a homunculus and will come to life as a homunculus when we steal the eyes and then fight us. So we'd have to worry about that. And we can also see how much value we'll get. We'll get 10 gold worth of gems if we steal here. Lastly, this is a sacrificial pit. If we kill a monster while we're standing in the sacrificial pit, it's considered to be essentially that we're sacrificing that monster to one of the dark gods in the game. And we gain 10% of our spell points back by doing that every time we do that. It's also considered an evil act. That means if you're worshipping an evil god, well, all the evil gods in the game are going to be happy when you do that. All the good gods in the game are going to be pissed off when you do that. Our goddess won't give a crap either way. But we'll regain 2 spell points every time we kill a monster in that pit. We're not missing any spell points, so it wouldn't help us right now. Last things to show you are these 2 items here, and they're very common squares we're looking at here. This is an object. These are papers. Really, these are the same type of square. If we walk into here, we'll find something to pick up, an object. If we walk into here, we'll find something to pick up. It's just, in this case, it'll be something paper. It'll be map, or a spell book, or a tome, or a scroll. Something made of paper is laying here. Something not made of paper is laying here. That said, there is also a chance that these are booby traps. You can see that right here. If this square could provide a new map, a random new spell scroll, or a prayer, or a skill tome, or it could be a booby trap. The chance of that is quite low. It's like less than 10%. But unlike a lot of roguelikes where all of the pit traps or all of the booby traps are completely hidden from you, in this game you can see where potential booby traps are. So if you're particularly hurt, might be a good idea not to risk stepping on one of these kinds of squares. For now, though, we're not hurt at all. Let's go ahead and do that. Last thing I swear I'll tell you before we move on is there is a second type of trap. Those are booby traps. They could be booby traps, just like the one that's on the clay idol. It could be a booby trap. There are also pit traps in the game. Pit traps you cannot see unless you get your secret detection skill up, where you can start spotting them in advance. You can't see them, and then when you walk into it, the pit opens up and you fall in. So those are different from booby traps. Let's go ahead. I'm going to use the number pad here. We can use the number pad to move in any of the 4 cardinal directions. You can also use the WASD keys, or you can use your mouse and just click on any square and you'll run there by the fastest, safest means. Let's go ahead and pick up these papers, and then we'll talk about the things we can see new here. Oh, we found a nice tome. A tome of knowledge. You found a tome entitled, What Was That? Volume 1. So let's take a look at that. Hit OK, or press any key. When it says any key here, it means press any key to get rid of this screen. There you go. So let's go over to our inventory screen. Here's our dart we talked about. We can see a little bit about it. We'll talk more about it in a second when we get into combat. But let's look right away at the tome that we found. What was that? Volume 1. You may left-click the tome to learn Mutology skill to the basic level, provided your intelligence is at least 30. Doing so will destroy the tome. Unfortunately, our intelligence is 20. We're too stupid to understand what this tome is talking about. But if we get our intelligence up to 30, we can click that. We'll instantly learn this skill free of charge. Now, you also saw it was Volume 1. Skill tomes come in 3 different volumes, 1, 2, and 3, because skills can be trained to the basic level, to the advanced level, or to the expert level. This one coincidentally teaches the basic level, so we don't have any other prerequisites. But if this was Volume 2, in addition to needing a certain level of intelligence to learn the skill, we would also need to already know basic mutology before we can learn it to the advanced level. Again, we'll talk more about that later. For now, let's walk over here. I saw a monster over here. Let's go deal with it. There it is. We can see severed hands, guys. Literally severed hands that have been animated. And just like everything else, when you point at it, we learn about it. Everything you point at it here, you'll see is giving us info in this top panel here. Info panel 1. This is info panel 2, where the details are all about any monster you see. So let's take a look at this severed hands. We can see a breakdown of its various skills here. We can see it has an attack rating of 12. That means a base 12% chance to hit us. It has a defense rating of 0. It means our chance to hit it is not modified in any way. Its intelligence is standard. I'll talk about that in 1 second. It does 1 point of physical damage if it hits us. We can tell it's physical because that little sword icon next to the damage means it's physical, i.e. it's going to jump up and try and claw at us / strangle us to death. Its speed is slow. It means it's a lot slower than we are. If we didn't want to fight it, we could easily walk away from it. It won't be able to keep up. It's like a zombie in Dawn of the Dead. It's so damn slow. Most monsters in the game are slower than you. Even average speed monsters are slower than you. So most of the time you have the control over, do I want to fight this monster or not? Not all the time. You might get cornered, or you also might meet fast monsters who are faster than you. But this one is very, very slow. We can also see it has 3 hit points. Not too hard to kill. We do 1 to 3 damage with our dart, so we might kill it with a single hit if we're lucky. And it'll give us 11 experience points if we kill it. You can also see in the top right corner with this little graphic in the bottom right corner of the screen down here. In the top right corner of that screen, you see the little graphic with level 1. That's just a tip to let you know this is a level 1 monster. It's the weakest type of monster in the game. Monsters come in level 1 to 30, so broad range of monsters in that, but this is a pretty weak one. Other things we can see, let's cover it off so that you understand the game to the best of your ability. You can see it has resistances. 11%, we see that sword symbol again. So that means physical. It has an 11% resistance to physical damage. Any damage we do to it is going to be lowered by 11% if we're using physical damage, which we are with our dart. In this case, it won't matter. Even if we do 1 point of damage, 11% of 1 leaves us with 0.89 damage, and damage gets rounded off, so it'll go back up to 1. But, if we did 3, it'll still be 2.67 damage, which means I think something like that, which means it'll still be rounded up to 3. But if it was a tougher monster or we were doing more damage, it might have a greater effect. All undead have a level of physical resistance. This being the weakest of the undead has pretty little physical resistance. That symbol next to it means toxin, poison, and disease. This particular monster, like most undead, is 100% immune to poison or disease. It can't become poisoned, it can't become diseased, and if we're trying to damage it with a poison source or a disease source, I don't think such a thing exists in the game, but if we were trying to, the damage would be reduced to 0. Underneath that, we can see a bunch of details about it. It has a special ability, which can be pretty dangerous, and you might see it and think, oh my god, that's a lethal, which it is, dangerous ability, but it's not really. There's a 3% chance we instantly die when it hits us. Most monsters don't have that kind of thing. This is a unique ability of Severed Hands. That's because it's literally trying to strangle us. But bear in mind, it only has an attack rating of 12, which gives it a base 12% chance to hit. We'll come back to that in a second. So even if it hits us, then there's only a 3% chance that we die, and it'll die long before it does it to us. I'm not saying you can't be killed by Severed Hands outright. You can be. Obviously, it's an ability. But it's really unlikely. You're going to see it 1 out of every 1,000 games you play. You'll get killed by Severed Hands, maybe. It is also immune to smoke inhalation. No surprise there. It can't breathe. It's undead. We can see that written there. And underneath that, very important to all monsters in the game, when you point at them, you get a combat odds breakdown. We can see we have a 40% chance of hitting it for 1 to 3 damage. Its odds to hit us are only 10% for 1 damage. Now, why is it 10% when we mentioned it has an attack rating of 12? Well, if you remember, as a lizard man, we have an innate defense, we can see that right here, an innate defense of 30. So 12 minus 30, it should have a negative 18% chance to hit us, but neither you nor any monster in the game can ever have less than a 10% chance to hit. So it's only got a 10% chance to hit us, and then a 3% chance, if it hits, of instantly killing us. On top of that, you'll also notice with its odds, a 67% chance of a 10% chance for 1-to-1 damage. This is the last thing we'll have to talk to you about it before you'll kill it, hopefully. But our dart has that distance strike ability of 33%. Most missile weapons will grant you a 33% distance strike ability. It also means we have no strength bonus. You can see that written there next to the distance strike aspect. The no strength bonus means, depending on how strong you are, you have a chance every time you hit with a melee weapon of doing extra damage just because of your strength. The higher your strength, the greater the odds of that happening. As well, the higher your strength, the greater range of damage, bonus damage you're going to do with that bonus strength damage. But because we're using a thrown weapon, there is no bonus strength damage. Our strength doesn't come into play at all with this weapon. But we do get this 33% distance strike ability. Now you'll see there's, if you're used to other, let's get closer to it. If you're used to other roguelikes, let's just pass our turn and let it come to us. Just to there. Unlike most roguelikes, where you'd bump into this to attack it, it doesn't work that way in this game. You actually step into the square. When we move to the right, we will be in the same square as it. And as long as you're in the same square as a monster, you trade blows every turn. You trade attacks. That's because, to be honest, when I made Caverns, I had no idea other roguelikes really existed. I knew a little bit about Dungeon on the Commodore PET. I knew a little bit about Sword of Fargol on the Commodore 64. I had never heard the term roguelike, didn't know Rogue existed, didn't know Moria existed, didn't know Angband existed, didn't know about any of them back in 95, and didn't really know about them for the first 15 years or so that I worked on the game. So I didn't have the bump to attack idea in my head, never would have occurred to me. It turns out both Dungeon and Sword of Fargol use the enter the square to attack, so I'm assuming that's where I got the idea. In any event, one last thing that's different from other roguelikes, when you're using a missile weapon, you don't use it at range. We don't like click a thing and then say, okay, I'm going to throw the dart at this guy. You still enter the square and throw the dart from close to point blank range. Even if you're using a longbow, you're getting within 20 feet of it before you start firing. The ostensible reason in the game is because it's so gloomy down here, it's hard to see, but the real reason is I wanted to make sure you were still at risk, even if you're using a missile weapon. But because of our distance strike ability of 33%, there's a 33% chance every round of combat it will not get to swing at us because we were standing far enough back throwing darts that it didn't get a chance to hit us. So we hit it for. You can see the scrolling info there, and you can also see it down here, the combat results. You hit the severed hands for 3 points of damage. Distance strike, which means it didn't even get to swing at us. And it's dead. There you go. And we can see our experience climbed to 11 out of 300. We're getting there. This little bar started to fill up. Alright, let's keep walking around to see what we see. These are just glowing crystals. Just cast light like three squares. Just cast light 2 squares. Luminescent mushrooms can cast light 1 square and can be trampled if you walk through them, in which case they'll stop glowing. If you or a monster walk through them. Here's our Shrine to Olympus. We'll deal with that a little later. Let's not do it yet. These are stalactites hanging from the ceiling. It's just a normal square we can enter, but flying monsters can't enter those squares because they would hit the stalactites. If you're flying, you can't enter it. This, by contrast, is cave columns. We can see through it, but we can't actually enter it. Some monsters can, like snakes, I think, can pass through that. There's also stalagmites, which work exactly the opposite of stalactites. If you're not flying, you can't enter it. When I left-clicked to move, you saw it said, hey, monster sighted, and it stopped us. That's because we can see this guy way up here. Let's go deal with him. A coffin dweller, another undead. He's a level 3 undead. Let's move up there by left-clicking, say, to here. There we go. He's of standard, or slow speed as well. I guess he's even slower than, he's just as slow as those severed hands were. Let's talk about the intelligence aspect, because we haven't talked about it yet. There are many different intelligences monsters can have. This guy's standard. That means he can detect us either through sight or through sound. If he can see us, he knows we're here. If he can hear us, he knows we're here. Monsters have a sight range maximum of 12 squares. If there's an unobstructed line of sight out to 12 squares, then they can see you and they know where you are, and they'll generally start pathfinding towards you if they're standard intelligence. The hearing works by every turn. The range at which a monster can hear you is randomized for that particular monster between 1 and 12 squares. If you are within that range, even if you're behind a wall, it doesn't matter. If you happen to be 8 squares away and they have a hearing range that turn of 8, then they can hear you and they'll start pathfinding towards you. But if the next turn they have only a hearing range of 7 and they haven't gotten any closer to you, now they can't hear you, they'll give up the chase. So it's going to flux every turn. This guy uses both. Let's go ahead and kill him. Let's look at his abilities, of course. We can see 13% physical resistance, so a little more resistant than that severed hand was, but still no big deal. 100% toxin resistance. Its big ability, of course, is that if you kill it, there's a 50% chance it returns to life at full health. So we may kill it just to find it stands back up and keeps fighting. Let's find out if that happened here. Nope, that one stayed dead. 34 experience points for that. So here we have a little problem. This is a giant maggot. Let's break its stuff down to you so we can stop explaining all the different details of these stats. Animal intelligence. That has 2 effects. One, they only use hearing to detect you. So even if it can see us, it won't come at us. It'll just use that fluctuating range of hearing to determine if it can detect us. What that really translates to is if you keep your distance from a monster that has animal intelligence, it's not going to bug you. But the closer you get, the more likely you are that you're going to upset it and it'll come at you. This is a level 4 insecto. We can see resistance to electricity is minus 50%. That means if we could do electrical damage to it, we would do 50% extra to it. But its big ability, it can devour non-golem corpses to gain health equal to its max health over 2. So it'll make a beeline for any monster corpse it can see, and it'll eat that corpse. And when it does, its health will climb by 50%. So if it gets to this thing and eats it, it's going to climb to 6 health. Normally, I'd be like, if you see a giant maggot, kill it as quickly as possible because, of course, we don't want it getting more and more powerful. But given who we worship, Loomis, and how pissed off she'll get if we kill insectoids, it'd be a bad way to start the game to mess with it. So let's just leave it alone. It's of average speed. If we keep away from it, it's not going to bug us. So let's just let it be. And we won't get the experience for killing it, but at least we won't get our goddess mad. Let's go pick this up. So here we found a blink trap kit. It might be worthwhile using this, actually. Let's take a look at that. So trap kits come in all different shapes and sizes. They are the tools you use to set a trap for monsters to step in and get hurt. In this case, you can see the uses remaining are 4. That means we can use it 4 times before this particular trap kit is exhausted and disappears from our inventory. And if we set it and a monster steps in it, it will teleport that monster to a random new square on the map. It won't hurt it in any way, but it will get rid of it, at least in terms of being in your immediate vicinity, unless it happens to teleport it, to somewhere close by or even the same square, which could really rarely happen. What else I want to point out, though, is that you can see the chance to set when we point at it, saying 50%. That's because there is a skill called trap setting. If you get this trap setting skill up, your odds of successfully setting a trap go up. For us, since we're untrained, we only have a 50-50 chance of actually setting this. We try to do it, and if we fail, it'll affect us instead. We'll instantly trigger the trap on ourselves. So essentially, in this case, if we try to use it and fail, we'll get teleported somewhere randomly. That wouldn't really hurt us, though, of course. So why don't we actually use this particular trap? I'm going to tell you why. Because don't forget, our goddess will get happy every time we successfully set a trap for a monster. We know that maggot is there. Let's go over near it. Say here. Let's go ahead and set this trap. And if we fail, what's the worst that happens? It teleports us randomly to an empty space. It's not going to actually hurt us. So we don't have to worry about that. Let's go ahead and do that. Boom. Oh, there it worked. You see the friendly blink trap. If we query the square now, query means point your cursor at it. The next time a monster enters a square, it will be transported to a random empty space somewhere on this map. After that, the square will become empty space. You may pass through the square freely. Let's back off. Let's let the maggot... Oh, hopefully it'll come down to us. That's the other aspect of random intelligence, or rather animal intelligence monsters, is occasionally they move in a random direction. They're unpredictable, of course. Come on, buddy. There you go. He got teleported right over here. But you saw some faith points scroll by. Let's go up here. We now have 3 faith points. And if we were to go to look at our status with her, hey, she's at 61% now. She's interested in us. I'm going to exhaust that blink trap right now on this thing, because again, if we teleport, it's not really going to hurt us. Let's go ahead and put this here. We know he's going to come for the dead body. Oh, we triggered it. We got teleported right there. Teleported over here. Let's go one last time. Here's a potion merchant. Let's deal with... Or Monday Night merchant. Let's deal with him in a second. Oh, here's another insectoid. These are demonic larval psionics. Bunch of things to tell you about this. The first thing is, again, insectoid. We don't want to kill it because it'll just make Loomis mad. And it does have average speed, so it's fast, but it's not fast as we are, so we can stay away from it. Its intelligence level is genius because it's a psionic type example of this thing. Genius monsters don't need line of sight to you and don't need to hear you. Genius monsters know exactly where you are at all times and will always try to pathfind the best way to get to you, assuming they're not running away from you in terror, assuming they haven't failed a morale check and are running. They're going to be trying to find you. So this thing's just going to track us no matter where we go. Let's go ahead and use the trap kit one last time. Teleported it somewhere, I don't know where. You can see now the trap kit's gone from our inventory, and that's really why I wanted to use it, as I knew it was a safe way to gain a little bit of faith. And we only have, at the start of the game, 10 inventory slots to fill before we can't carry anymore. We can get that up pretty easily with our traveling skill. You can get up to 25 slots if you get this skill to expert. But for now, you've only got the 10 slots, so why not use that trap rather than leave it behind to carry something else? And now we're at 6 faith. Again, when we gain faith from that, we only gain 61% in that case of however much faith we would have gained. So instead of gaining 5 faith, we got 61% of 5 faith, which is 3. We got a couple of new things here. We can see that merchant down there that a second ago that was the mundane item merchant. This is a magic item merchant. Let's try and see what he has for sale. We can also try and pickpocket him, of course. Let's go pick this up on the way by. Alright, armor. An improvised armor that is a thick apron. So, you can see right here, our base defense 30 because we're a lizard man. If we put this on by left-clicking it, that's to equip it, we're up to 35. That means this monster, which has an attack of 35, would have minus 35 to hit us, or 0% chance, modified to 10% because you can't get less than 10%. What that also tells me is there's no point in wearing this to fight that thing right now, because even with 30 defense, subtracted from 35, it still has a 5% chance, which gets modified to 10% chance, i.e. wearing this is not going to help us in this case. Now, things to point out. The improvised breastplate versus a standard breastplate. This means it's not really armor. It's something you can use as armor, but it wasn't designed for that. And as a result, it can't have a condition above 50%, and you can't repair it at a forge. So they tend to break easier than weapons or armor that are meant to be used for weapons or armor. It also has a special ability, which means that you don't need armor use skill to use it, but we do have armor use skill. Every character in the game starts with basic armor use and basic weapon use. So unless we somehow lost this skill, we're never going to find ourselves in that position. Let's go deal with that magic item merchant just to see what he has and to steal from him. So we stole from him, and because he's a magic item merchant, what we stole was a magic item. We stole dragon teeth. Let's take a look at that after we've dealt with whatever he's selling. Do we want to see what he's selling? Yeah, let's find out. Here we go. Thank the gods. Someone with money. You do have money, yes? When it comes to magic items, what you see is not what you get. What you get is like what you see plus 6. So these are the things he's selling here. An infernal lamp, ice crystal powder, a gem of locking, a robe of useful items, and a confounding robe. And we can see the cost down here. 35 gold pieces, 1, 5, 30, 35. Let's find out what they are. The infernal lamp. You may use the infernal lamp by left-clicking it, provided your magic item use skill is at least basic. Unfortunately, ours is completely untrained at the start of the game. So if we bought this, we couldn't use it anyway. We couldn't use any of these, to be honest. They're all going to be low-power magic items, probably. Basic magic item use lets you use low-power magic items and low-power things like low-power magic rings and low-power magic amulets. Until we get our skill up, we can't use any of the above. But we could buy it and carry it, and then when we get the skill, we get to start using it. So we could use it if our magic item use skill is at least basic, by left-clicking it. Doing so would raise our sight range from 5 squares, as you saw it was, to 11 squares for 120 turns, but it would cause us magic damage equal to 5% of our max health. One thing I'm going to do right after I, let me just note this for myself. This playthrough as well is serving, as all playthroughs do for me, as a play test as well, where I can, fix any bugs or, just tweak things that I see. I'm going to add in the calculation at the bottom of this, so you don't have to figure out what 5% of your max health is. It'll tell you at the bottom underneath that sentence how much it does. Let's matter of fact, I'll do that right now, and I'll come back and you'll see the results. For you, it'll take the blink of an eye before I'm back. For me, it'll take about 20 minutes. See you soon. All right, guys, we are back. Let's let's take a look at what we did. Let's talk to this guy again by passing our turn. You can pass your turn by pressing the 5 key or the space key or by left-clicking your own square. He walked away from us, unfortunately. Rude. You are back, Zzikothk. Magic items are fun. You'll be the life of any party. See how shiny? So if we look at the infernal lamp now, you can see it actually does the calculation for you. So if we were to use this thing, if we bought it, and if we had the ability to use it, our sight range would increase to 11 for 120 turns, but we would take 2 points of magic damage. And if we have magic resistance skill, which we don't, it might lower that amount of damage somewhat. What does the ice crystal powder do? We could use this by left-clicking it, provided our magic item use skill is at least basic. This one you can see a uses remaining, which means we can only use this particular one once. That's why it's so cheap. Doing so will remove all flames, cooking fires, hot coals, and lava from your current square and all adjacent squares, as well as remove burning status from you and all adjacent monsters. So it would, clear out a path for us through some lava or fire or something, or if we were on fire, it would douse the flame on us, that kind of thing. Gem of Locking. You may use the Gem of Locking once per map by left-clicking it. So you can see different uses, right? This one you can use once and it's gone. That's not always the case. There might be more uses remaining sometimes, but in this case, like our Blink Trap that had 4 uses remaining, this one only happens to have 1. He only has a tiny bit of ice crystal powder for sale. This one we can use as often as we want with a consequence. This one we can only use once per map. So if we used it, we couldn't use it again until we went to a new map, like a new dungeon level or something. Doing so will immediately lock all lockable doors in your square and every adjacent square. So if it can be a way to lock a door behind you if a monster's chasing you don't want to face, for instance. We have the Robe of Useful Items. Once again, can use it once per level and only. Doing so will generate a random mundane item of a tool-like nature. So it literally conjures you tools. The Confounding Robe, once per map only. Doing so will have a random effect, causing all monsters except automatons to flee in fear for 60 turns, potentially confusing any monster in your square permanently, or turning you invisible for 120 turns. So it's one of those three effects would happen when you used it. You wouldn't know which one, and you could only use it once per map. All of them are beyond our price range right now because we're literally 100% broke. And I'll be honest, I'm not sure I want any of them for these prices, so we'll consider it. There is a bartering skill you can get up. It's a general skill we can see here that if we got it up, would lower the prices or let us sell things for more. What else do we want to talk about? Give me 1 second, guys. I apologize. I'm having some allergies today, and I need to drink some water. Alright, I'm back. Alright. So, one last thing to talk about with the psionics, because we didn't really talk about it, right? And that is this. Beyond being a genius, you can see it has resistance with that little hand. That little hand symbol means magic. So it has an 11% magic resistance. All diabolics, which this is, that means like a demon type thing, have some degree of magic resistance, just like all undead have a physical resistance, but this one's a really low level 1. It's a level 1 monster, so its magic resistance is pretty shit. What it actually means, though, is if we were doing magic damage to it, not every spell does magic damage, but if we were doing something that was explicitly said, hey, this is magic damage, we would do 11% less. On top of that, any spell we cast at that demonic larval psionics would have 11% chance and 11% chance of just bouncing off and doing nothing. Only an 89% chance a spell would work on it. You can see its special ability. It drains 25% of our spell points every time it hits us. So if it fought us, it would drain 5 spell points the first time it hit us. We can also see it's a dual type monster. I mentioned it's insectoid, but it's a diabolic / insectoid. It has a 1 in 4 chance of casting a spell every turn because it's a psionic monster. Its type of spells it casts will only be offensive. It won't heal itself. It won't cast defensive spells. It will only cast offensive spells. And only PS if it's fighting you. If it's in your square, it might do this. Or if it's in a square fighting a different monster, it might do this. But it won't just do it randomly, like while it's standing far away from you. And in the brackets, you can see 10 SP. That means it only has 10 spell points before it runs out of spell points. If we were to kill it, demonic larval psionics will drop an item if killed. So if you kill it, it'll drop something. And because it's a spellcaster, it will always drop something magical, like a magic item or a spell book or a scroll or something like that. And our usual combat odds. Let's move on from here. I guess one last thing. These NPCs, if a monster enters their square, it will instantly kill the NPC. So we want to make sure it doesn't enter any of the squares. You might want to go try and steal from that cleric, because that cleric is down here. That's maggots eating the dead bodies. It's all the way up to 8 health now. Let's pick up this gold. 4 gold pieces. New monster we can see. More severed hands. Also a rabid badger. Only thing interesting about it, there's a 5% chance if it hits us that it drives us insane. We'll talk about that if it ever happens. Insanity is a disease you don't particularly want to get. We may end up passing through this square with these. Yeah, okay, so they're in our square. So first of all, hey, we saw it cast a spell. Demonic Larval Psionics casts Stone Fling. It conjured a magic stone that then flew at us, and we took 1 point of damage. You can see our health is down to 39 out of 40. That's there, okay? Now this is important, so I might as well get this out of the way. Again, I apologize for the lengthy video here, guys. I promise you later levels will obviously have far less to explain. The combat results. It missed us, but we are currently refusing to fight. What is that about? That is where this button way down here comes into play. This is the combat state button. Let's get rid of this. Clicking this is not going to pass our turn or anything, so I'm going to show you the different combat states. Combat state can be in one of 3 states. It defaults and starts the game at selectively fight. You can see that written right down here. Selectively fight. If we left click this button, it turns to don't fight. If we left click it again, it turns to fight, and left click it again, it comes back to selectively fight. There are only those 3 only those 3 states. Now let's talk about the different states. If you have it in don't fight, then if I enter a square with a monster, it doesn't matter what the monster is, I am not going to fight it. It's going to say you're currently refusing to fight, and the monster is going to swing at me, and I'm not going to swing back. When would you do that? There's various reasons. One of them might be if you had a weapon that was very nearly broken and you didn't feel like unequipping it. I don't know. Or you're, I don't know. You might want to cast spells at the monster, so you want to enter a square, but you don't want to fight it and damage your weapon. If it's saying you're fighting an ooze, it could destroy your weapon if you hit it, or if it hits you rather. I don't know. Maybe that's not a great example, but there's reasons why you might not want to. If you click fight, that says no matter what, enter a square, I'm going to fight this monster. I don't care what it is, I'm going to take a swing at it. Selectively fight is the only really weird one in the bunch, and it was added in at a player's request, and I think it made a lot of sense. And that is because, remember, Alumis will get mad if we kill this thing. So because it's set to selectively fight, we're left-clicking this button to do this. Let's right-click this button and see that it brings up a totally different screen called Selective Combat. Selective Combat screen lists different types of monsters in the game that there are concrete, logical reasons you might not want to fight for certain characters. And you can see all of those different types of monsters are listed as fight or don't fight. And the game presets certain monsters to don't fight. It presets golems to don't fight. We'll talk about why as soon as we meet a golem of any kind, including if that thing comes to life as a homunculus. A homunculus is a golem. But it comes preset with insectoids don't fight just for us, and that's because we worship Alumis. It knows she's going to get mad if we kill an insect. So as a courtesy to us, it starts the game with the idea of, don't worry, if you step in a monster square that might piss off your god if you kill it, you're not going to swing at it. It's just a courtesy. Now if we wanted to override that, there'd be two ways. We could toggle this to go into here and left click to toggle it to fight. Now for the rest of the game, even if we're in selective combat mode, we will fight insects. Let's put it back though, we don't want that. The easier way is just to do this. Now we're saying let's fight this monster, and as soon as we're done this combat we can set it back to this, So you can override any of those things. But for now, let's leave it there. We really don't want to kill this, so let's let it attack us and let's not attack it. P.S. Let's look at its spell points left. You can see in the bottom right corner of the screen there. 1 in 4 chance to cast low power offensive spells, bracket 3 spell points. It only has 3 spell points left. It costs 7 spell points for it to cast Stone Fling. One moment again, guys. I apologize. I was going to go over here to try and rob this guy. Well, maybe we can. This thing's pretty slow. Let's get over here, see if we can steal. Hey, we stole from the cleric, guys, because we are because we have pocket picking skill. 50% chance we do that the very first time we enter an NPC square. If we come back in the square again, it won't happen again. You can only pickpocket from somebody once. You can only try to pickpocket from any given NPC once. Once you've tried, you can't try again. We don't want his help. Let's go over here so that these monsters stop going near that cleric anyway, in case we do need his help later. Let's go ahead and kill this rabid badger. Nice and easy, it's dead. We don't have any meat to cook. But you can see here a mysterious cupboard. It could be empty, but it could contain 1 to 3 scrolls, spell books, pieces of magic jewelry, potions, magic items or wands, staves or rods. 10% chance it's trapped if we try to open it. Let's go ahead. Alright, we found a new book. An Electric Touch spell book. Let's take a look at that. Oh, we also found a low power scroll. Let's take a look at both of those in reverse order. The low power scroll. This has a low power spell written on it. Low power spells are the kinds of spells we're allowed to cast. These kind of spells. Why are we allowed to cast it, by the way? Because we have basic spell use. At the basic level, spell use lets you cast low power spells. If we get to the advanced level, we're now allowed to cast mid power spells. If we got it to the expert level, we would now be allowed to cast high power spells. We will never get it that high because as a lizard man, don't forget, we can't learn these skills beyond the advanced level. Any of these skills under the mage skills column. But there you go. Thaumaturgy at basic means we get a basic amount of spell points. The higher your thaumaturgy, the more spell points you can get. There's other ways to raise it, of course, too. But that gives you a modifier, so you get extra spell points. Every single character in the game starts with these at basic, except for barbarians, who start with both of these at untrained. So they can't cast spells at the beginning of the game, for the most part. So this is a low power scroll. We know it to be a spell of this level of power that could appear in this list. We don't know what's on it, though. To be able to learn it, to figure out what's on that, we'd have to get our runic lore skill up. At the basic level, we could identify what a low power scroll is. At the advanced, we could identify mid power scrolls. At the expert, we could identify high power scrolls. Unlike some roguelikes that have, a random name for a scroll, and then once you cast it once, you know what that scroll is. It doesn't work that way in this game. You have to have the skill. We have 3 of the same exact scrolls in our inventory. We won't ever figure out what they are unless we cast it and find out what the effect is, or unless we get that skill up. Oh yeah, the spellbook Electric Touch. We also have these dragon teeth we should look at. So spellbooks are your way to learn spells. If we left-click this spell, the spellbook, we will instantly learn it, and it will appear in our low-power spell list for the rest of the game, unless it gets erased somehow. What does it do? We can see down here what it is. It's Electric Touch. It is a low-power enchantment. Enchantment is the type of spell it is. Most of the time it doesn't matter, but sometimes it does. We'll talk about it if it comes into play. It would cost us 30 spell points to cast, so we would not be able to cast it right now anyway. But if we do cast it, it'll last for 30 turns, and during that time, the spell causes an additional 1 to 5 electrical damage when we hit, but only if we have no weapon equipped, i.e. it makes our hands electrified, and then if we punch things, we do an extra 1 to 5 electrical damage. The Dragon Teeth, we have to have basic magic enemies before we can use it. We only have 2 uses, but when we use it, we plant the Dragon Teeth in the ground, and a summoned warrior will pop out of the ground to fight for us, and he'll survive as long as we stay on that level. He'll walk around trying to kill monsters for us, and any monsters he kills will get all the experience points, so that's a really good one to have. We might ditch the thick apron in a minute to be able to pick up more. Let's find out what this is. Oh yeah, let's learn the book. Let's go ahead and learn that spell. Before I do, let's note, spells known 3 out of 7. Spells known 4 out of 7. We are only capable of learning 7 spells in the whole game. That's it. Unless we find certain ways to increase that, magic items, this kind of things, certain perks, or if we get our memory skill up. Our memory skill is, of course, untrained, so we're only allowed 7 spells. But if we get that to the expert level, we can learn as many as 30 different spells. That's not 7 per spell type. 7 total among the low power, mid power, and high power spells is all we're allowed to have. We've already learned 4 of them. But at least that gives us an option to do some sort of damage other than physical, which could be useful. We'll talk about that if it comes into play. Let's go pick up these papers and see what they are. It is another spell book. Nice. You find an ESP spell book. Let's go ahead and learn that spell. It's a great spell to have. You can see down here it's a low power divination, different spell type. This spell reveals all non-automaton monsters and NPCs, even in unexplored territory, even if they're invisible or disguised, for 120 turns. Let's go ahead and learn that. Will cost us 20 spell points to cast. It's also, you can see we have to have at least 20 intelligence to cast it, so we could do that. We don't have the intelligence to cast Cure Poison or Electric Touch, even if we had enough spell points. We have to get our intelligence up. We do ultimately want to go through here. There was a damsel over here. It's another NPC type, but she got killed. A monster entered her square and she got killed. So if you are old hat to the game, this is worth listening to as well, because the way this square worked has changed. This is a stone coffer. It's basically a big chest filled with treasure made of solid stone. So to open it, we would have to pass a strength test. And what that means now is when this square was created for the map, it had a random number associated with it, between 3 and 300. If we try to open this chest, if our strength isn't at least equal to that number, we won't be able to. We'll try to lift the lid and it'll be like, it's too heavy. But if we get our strength back up later on, we can come back and try again and see if we're strong enough. It used to be in the old game, in the previous additions to this one, you could only try once. Now you can try as much as you want. Hey, we're strong enough. And inside we found 4 gold pieces. Good stuff. We're carrying 14 out of 40 gold. Let's keep an eye on that. What is this? A holy brazier. Entering the square gives you the option of dousing the holy brazier with a random effect. 1, we would gain unmodified faith equal to our relationship with our deity, or the average of all deities, if agnostic. So one of these 3 effects is going to take place if we do this. In our case, what would that be? We would gain 62 faith points for dousing this holy brazier, or it would burn us. We'd take 1 to the dungeon level worth of heat damage, i.e. we'd take 1 point of heat damage, or nothing would happen at all. Let's go ahead and try that. It's worth that risk. Nothing happened. It's still worth the risk. We found a tiny health potion. We can drink that once, guys. It'll restore 3 to 15 health to us, but there's a chance it's not really a health potion. There's a chance it's poisonous or befouled in some way. We would have to get our alchemy skill up to expert level to be able to tell that. That chance is low. Again, less than 10%. It's probably going to help us. It's probably going to be a health potion exactly as we surmise, but it might not be. There's that damsel. There's a bunch of stalagmites, stalactites, and such. Oh, a giant centipede. We're getting unlucky, guys, because this particular map has a lot of insects on it, so we're not able to fight a lot of things. Unfortunately, this one, you can see its speed is fast. It is faster than we are. We might be able to lose it, given it has animal intelligence. If we ran away, it might slowly make, choices that make it move in a random direction, and if it did that enough, we put enough distance between us and it that we could get away. I don't want to chance that, especially given it has a special ability. You can see here, 18% chance it would mildly poison us if it hits us. So let's go ahead and switch our combat state to fight. We're going to kill this thing. It's going to piss off Illumis. Oh, unless we can ditch it. If we can ditch it, I will. Let's grab some gold on the way by. There's the stairs. Another thick apron we don't need. This is a fumarole. It'll toggle 1 in 4 chance each turn. It toggles between active and inactive status. If you enter its square when it's active, or if you are standing on it when it activates, if you end your turn and then it toggles to active, you're going to take damage, heat damage, 1 to 15 in this case. So let's not enter that square. Yeah, we ditched it, at least for the moment. Let's pick up some more gold. We still can. I want to get to a point where I can show you something interesting here. We're at 28. May not get that chance. Let's kill this guy because I don't want him getting near the magic item merchant and stuff. Let's go kill him. Well, we don't need to. Let's kill him here. We don't need any spell points. We don't have any spells we can cast that would really help us here, and I really want to... Well, we can't cast Cure Poison yet if we get poisoned, so let's hope he doesn't poison us. Alright, we have negative 14 faith now, guys. She really doesn't like us for the moment. Let's go ahead and pray at the... or pay our respects at the Sepulchre. Try and get some faith points back. We got 27 back. Okay, so we're up to 13 faith. There was a chance that it could have been an undead monster that came out of there too, but it didn't. Pick up this weapons off the weapon rack. It could have been trapped, it's not. There are 2 different weapons on it. A heavy stick and a sickle of anxiety. The heavy stick, unlike our dart, would not be a missile weapon. It would be a melee weapon, so we could get a strength bonus. We would not have our distance strike ability anymore. We'd have a -6 to hit with it, -6% chance, but it would do 2 to 4 damage instead of 1 to 3. The sickle anxiety would have -9 to hit. It would do 1 to 6 damage. And every time we hit the monster, there'd be a 10% chance that monster would run away from us for 1 to 30 turns. The stick we for sure don't want. Look at its condition. 1%. It's nearly broken to begin with. 1 swing is probably going to snap in half. This thing is not bad. Let's go ahead and drop the thick apron, which we're not going to use for a while anyway because of our defense with our lizard man skin. Pick that up. Reorganize, by the way. You click this button, it puts all your stuff in an order that makes sense. All your weapons together, all your magic items together, all your potions together, etc. Let's go see what's in this. This is a trophy case. Let's see what's in it, if anything. Nothing. This is fire. Walking that, we're going to get burned. It's also spreading smoke around. That particular fire is not spreading. It's not going to go anywhere. It's like a bonfire. No reason to go up there just now. If we walk in the smoke, we might get inhalation damage. Oh, we're still stuck on go ahead and fight mode. You can see it hit us. We lost some spell points. Let's put this back to don't fight. I don't want to lose 20 faith for the sake of getting a few experience. So we hit a booby trap here that time, guys. A chemical spray trap. There are hundreds of different kinds of booby traps. We are monster attractant for the next 120 turns. While we are monster attractant, all monsters know where we are, and we have -10 to hit and a -10 defense. It means they have +10 to hit us, we have -10 to hit them. We're covered in a sticky substance that all the monsters can smell. So all of them in the map are going to be coming at us now. Not that they're going to be any faster than they were. Also, I want to point out, so when anything, whenever you get a status effect, whether there's a buff or a debuff, if you get a buff, it's going to show up with an icon along this bottom border of the map. If you get a debuff, it's going to show up with an icon along the left-hand side. Let's go ahead and point at this one. We are monster attracting. This icon indicates that your character is covered in monster attractant, a sticky, smelly substance. While covered, all monsters know exactly where you are, and you have -10 to hit and -10 defense. You remain monster attractant for a further 120 turns. And as long as we keep pointing at this, we can see it count down, right? Look at that, 117 turns, 116, 115, blah, blah, blah. So eventually that'll wear off. I can hear that mundane item merchant out there, but I've lost track of where he is. I wouldn't mind seeing what... Oh, there he is. Seeing what he has for sale. I'm trying to steal from him. We don't steal anything. Let's see what he's got for sale. Hello. Hello, newcomer. I welcome you as dawn welcomes the sun. My gear is simple, yes, but oft-times simplicity is the mark of genius. I'm not doing the same accent I gave him earlier. You look pretty simple. How about it? So we could buy an empty bucket from him. We can fill that with water and dump it on our head to douse us if we ever caught on fire. We could also fill it with water and then splash that water on things like that fire we saw up north. And eventually put out the fire. But you'd need to get water to get in it first. Another trap kit we could set. Not a bad one either. If this one gets triggered, it'll spread acidic vapor all around and possibly kill monsters for us. A candelabra that would increase our sight range while we're carrying it while it's lit. It'll last for 1,440 turns. A candle, which will also last for 1,440 turns, but won't spread as much light as the candelabra will for obvious reasons. Chemical-resistant gloves, as long as those are in our inventory, we gain plus 13% acid resistance and are immune to acidic effects of fountains and pools. And this bucket, look at that, he's actually selling the water. Same price. It's not just a bucket, it's got some water in it. So we get it free. It's only got a little bit of water in it, though. Water buckets can be filled up to 3 uses remaining. Unlike other items, when they run out of uses remaining, buckets do not disappear. They just become empty. You just gotta fill them again. I'm not gonna get any of those things from him right now, though. Our inventory slots are too limited to waste on those particular items, I think, at this point. The acidic vapor trap interests me, but because our trap setting skill is so low, I don't want to hurt ourselves. Let's kill these guys. Yeah, we're going to leave this level with a lot less experience than I would like. So we could run the treasure into the temple. It's not a bad idea. I just heard, by the way, that giant maggot just ate that corpse of those severed hands. I wanted to show you something, but I'll have opportunities to show you something later on. So let's go ahead and dump this in. You can see we dropped off 31 experience. Other characters would get 31. We dropped off 31 gold. Other characters would get 31 experience. We got 40 because of our ability. Let's go ahead and take the gemstone eyes out of this guy. We got them. Unfortunately, we also got a trap, a booby trap, a paralysis trap. You cannot move for 60 turns. And again, you can see the debuff icon showed up right here. This thing's down to 13 turns. This one's down to 60. While we're paralyzed, as you can see, we can't leave our square. We can still do everything else. We'll still fight if monsters come at us. We'll still cast spells. We just can't leave this square for 60 turns. So let's go ahead and keep an eye on that. Let's just pass our turn. We're going to see this one start to flash in a second. When a buff or debuff gets down to 5 turns left, it starts flashing. There you go, it's gone. This will move down on the list. So we're going to have to turn ourselves back to fight, guys. We can't get away from this thing. And we're not going to stand here and let it eat us. So I guess we're going to fight it. It's dead. It dropped a magic wand, an ice wall wand, but we did lose faith. Down to -7 faith, guys. The ice wall wand. Okay, well, let's talk about wands. So wands, staves, and rods have an associated skill. That associated skill is a mage skill called wand lore. Ours is, of course, untrained. We don't know how to use wands. We just wave it and see what happens. What that means for us with untrained wand lore skills, every time we try to use this wand, there's only a 25% chance we successfully use it. Otherwise, it doesn't have any effect, but it still costs a charge. You can see it has 6 charges. When those charges run out, we can't use the wand anymore. There are all kinds of ways to recharge wands, including getting your wand lore skill up, which will give you a better chance of using wands, staves, and rods, and also automatically start recharging them every time you go to a new map. But for now, we would have 6 uses in it. It's not going to do us a lot of good right now. If we were to cast it, we might be able to create an ice wall that's 3 wide here, but the maggot would just go around it. So let's go ahead and keep passing our turn. We'll carry that for now. Sorry, Illumis. Jesus. Alright, we can get away from it without fighting the maggot at least. There you go. We're down to -27 faith, guys. And unfortunately, my earlier plan of holding off to worship at that shrine is not a good idea anymore. We're down to 59% attitude with us. She likes us less than she did when we started. We might be able to fix that. Let's try and at least get it back to 60. Let's go to this Wheel of Fortune. As you can see, we have a 50-50 chance of winning here. Let's go ahead and hit yes or enter. Yes or enter will do it, or click on the button. There you go. So we gained 3 faith from her. She's back up to 60% liking us, and we gained 10 more gold pieces. We now have, as you can see, actually, not even gold. It comes as gems. We have 20 gems. We still have enough. Let's go ahead and try it again. Maybe we'll get lucky. There you go. Okay, so she likes us a little more. We now have 40 gems. We won't be able to use this anymore. You can see it doesn't even give us the option because the maximum allowable bet on dungeon level 1 is 30. We have 40. We could buy some of this stuff if we wanted to. Is there anything you really want to buy from him? Nah. Let's go drop this off in the temple. Gain 52 experience. And let's pray to the Illumined Shrine. Now, why did I want to hold off this whole time before doing this? I was hoping to maximize our relationship with them. There are all kinds of shrines in the dungeon, guys. Each one can be prayed at only once if you choose to. And your chance of successfully praying at a shrine is simple. It's your exact percentage of your relationship with that deity. In this case, we know she likes us 61%. If we pray here, we have a 61% chance that she'll reward us. But there is a corollary, because the gods are fickle. If she chooses not to reward us, she's not just going to ignore us, she will actively punish us. So you can see in this case what her particular deal is. If we pray here successfully, she will give us 1 to 10 times the dungeon level worth of gold, and 1 to 10 times the dungeon level worth of gems. If she doesn't, she's going to spring a booby trap on us. Let's go ahead and try. Alright. So she gave us 4 gold pieces and 8 gems. Thank you, Illumis. And you can see the shrine stopped glowing. We can't use it anymore. Let's drop that off, and let's get the hell out of here. I think we're done on this level, guys, which means we'll probably be done with the, There's a little bit to explore over there. Let's go. Let's put this back to don't, or selectively fight, rather. Nothing here. Get away from me. I think there's nothing else to look at. Let's run. I might as well show off the pathfinding. Yeah, like I said, you don't have to use the mouse or the keypad. You can scroll the screen around by right-clicking. Look at that. You can hold the right button down and sort of scroll like that. You can also look at the map itself. Just click this button or press tab, and you can see everything, and you can query everything. We can move on this map if we wanted to. Let's go ahead and click down here to try to run our character down here. It didn't let us right off the bat because we saw a monster, but now we can. There we go. And let's try and get this gold before we leave. There's also a gold-veined wall. We could try to mine the gold out of the wall there, guys, but we have untrained mining skill, which means we're probably going to fail. And if we fail, the wall is going to collapse on us, it's going to hurt us, and we're going to lose our map. It's going to cause a cave-in. So I don't want to risk it right now. Let's just run instead and get this. Yes. 3 gold. We can also see what items are left over. There's the thick apron, there's the heavy stick. This is the sacrificial pit. Just some of those fumaroles. And there's the stairs. Let's see if there's anything else up here. And if not, let's get out of here. I guess we're ready to go. Now I was going to say one last thing before we head down, and then we're going to call it quits for this episode, guys. And I promise you we'll be moving faster. As you can see, we're already starting to move faster. When you go down a level, a bunch of things happen. We can see some of those right here. Let's point at the stairs and look at it. So this staircase is going to take us to a brand new map, randomly generated, 1 dungeon level down, or at dungeon level 2. There is a 1% chance that any staircase is rotten. So when we try to descend it, it's actually going to break underneath us and drop us down, and we're going to fall and take some damage. Not likely to happen, but it can. Now here's a couple of key points. Descending improves your relationship with all gods and will grant you up to 20 faith. So every single god in the game, even the evil gods, want you to kill Xaskazien because all of them are terrified of him. This horrible being that they think can kill them too. So they are all rooting for you to some degree. So when you go down, you're getting closer to him, and they like that, and they'll reward you with faith. Our faith will be modified, of course, exactly as any other time by our relationship. So we'll get 61%, I think it was, of 20 faith, or whatever that is, like 12 faith if we go down these stairs. It'll also improve your relationship by 1% with every single god in the game. So that's a good thing. The last thing to tell you is anytime you go to a new map, doesn't matter if you're going downstairs, up a ladder, doesn't matter where you're going. If you leave this map and go to another, when you arrive, you get all of your spell points back. There's no other, there's lots of other ways, but there's no other specific easy way to gain back your spell points. So if you have a spell that has a lasting effect, something you cast and for a number of turns it takes effect, now's the time to cast it because it'll still be in effect when we go down, but we'll get all our spell points back. So if we still had 20 spell points, if that larva hadn't hit us, I'd say let's cast our ESP spell, but it does cost 20 spell points. We have nothing to cast, so let's go ahead and go down. Yes. Generating a map. Okay, we can talk about events before we quit. So events are special things that happen that have an effect. Some of the events will automatically take place on the very first turn of when you enter a new map, and they'll hold, either they'll have an immediate effect, or they'll hold for the rest of the map or something like that. Some events have a secret time they're going to go off. Say when it generates the event, it'll say, hey, if you're still on this map at turn 303, this event's going to happen. You won't know that, of course. But when they take effect, they have an effect. This event in particular we're going to talk about in a second, but let's read through it. White Spirit Eve. Originally an evening of great fear, when evil spirits were annually released upon the world, constant prayer and vigilance eventually resulted in the manifest of the White Spirit. Few have seen this spirit, but it roams Melanthus every year at this time, and its mere presence quails the hearts of demons. All diabolics on this level have their attack ratings halved. So let's click done. That's the only event. We're going to talk about all the stuff next episode, but we do have to finish talking about events. So there is an events tab. We can go ahead and click that right here, or press equals. This brings us to the event screen. We can see how many turns we've been on the map. Remember, between 900 and 1200 is when we're going to get the warning to get out of here. We're on turn 0 on this map. We can also point at the event and see what it talked about. Its status is completed, that's why it's grayed out. It had its effect already, it won't have any further effects. When it occurred, if there wasn't at least one diabolic type monster on the map, a level appropriate diabolic monster was added, then all diabolics on the map had their attack ratings halved. Now in particular, this is an interesting event to have happen for our first event, only because it's a holiday. And that means it wasn't randomly generated. This was actually always going to happen on this day. This tab also tells you what day it is. It is Monday, the 30th of Awakening. The Melanthic calendar is divided into 12 months of 30 days each, with 7-day weeks. It currently has no effect on gameplay other than dictating when holidays fall. So the 30th of Awakening is always White Spirit Eve, and we just happen to start the game on the 29th of Awakening. Every time you go to a new map, the day advances by 1. We can also see here, anecdotally, Awakening is the spring season and the first month of the year. So it's basically January 30th, something like that. Its formal elven name is Alethuil. The next holiday that's coming up, by the way, we can see right here, is Red Man Welcome. It will happen in 15 days, i.e. when we've traversed through 15 more maps, it will trigger that event, that holiday. When it occurs, we will gain a new random spellbook. Alright guys, we're going to call it right there. That is it for episode 1 of this Let's Play / Let's Learn Caverns of Xaskazien 2. I'll be back with more. As I promised, the pace is going to pick up. The deeper we get in the game, the faster the game will go, because I won't have to explain every darned rule to you. Hopefully you're finding it informative and still fun, though. I will talk to you, well, momentarily if you're sticking around. Bye. How do we quit? Escape? Or press Q? Or we can go into the Options tab. A ton of options in here that you can adjust. Talk about those in a later episode. As a general rule, if you don't have a reason to adjust the options, I would advise not doing it. I've set it to pretty good defaults, but you can. For instance, here's how you toggle full screen or windowed mode, or affect the volume of the music or the sound effects. Alright, or click quit and save to quit and save. There we go. See you guys.